Yeah. I've been trying to listen to what's going on, all the changes. Hey, Janet. Thanks whoever's hung in there with me. Just when I thought I was ready, some more stuff popped out. But let's listen here. I saw that they was. It's just been a lot going on. A lot. I'm just gonna start, let y'all hear, and then I'm gonna chime in because I'm eating lunch.
Has decided to abandon her efforts to prosecute the innocent. I mean, we all saw the reporting not that long ago that she sent somebody into the grand jury in Washington, D.C.
I hope it all fall apart. Every bit of it. Every plan.
Seeking felony indictments of 6 members of Congress, 2 senators, 4 representatives, even though they had committed no crime.
The Constitution, trying to buck the law.
Or veterans of our intelligence communities.
But insisting that we follow it.
Accurately, truthfully, and in accordance with military law, that military members are obligated to disobey unlawful orders.
So don't send them in no war
right there. Take it from this
on lies.
Army jag. And somehow, some way, Donald Trump convinced Jeanine Pirro to go into the grand jury and try to indict them for, what, treason or sedition. We don't know exactly what the proposed charges are. The problem is the prosecutors didn't know what the proposed charges were either. But mind you, these are offenses potentially punishable by death. So she sent a prosecutor in to try to obtain indictments in a potential death penalty case, even though no crimes had been committed. Brian, you cannot make this up. No Hollywood scriptwriter could come up with this. Well, now the new reporting is, after the grand jurors, sitting as the conscience of the community, not only did they not indict these 6 members of Congress, the vote was 0. 0 grand jurors voted in favor of an indictment. Let me tell you, I've never heard of that happening. Well, now the reporting is Jeanine Pirro
they need to bring her up on some charges.
Shelved her quest to indict the innocent, to prosecute people who had committed no crimes, and it looks like this investigation may now be dead. There's no guarantee that she can't try again at some point, but this is a good development for the rule of law, and we can talk in a few minutes about how I perceive this, not so much as a failure of Trump and his dirty DOJ leadership, but as a defeat at the hands of we the people sitting in the grand jury as the conscience of the community.
Glenn, if I remember correctly, Senator Mark Kelly had actually brought a lawsuit against Pete Hegseth for the fact that Hegseth was part of this whole charade against these Democratic lawmakers and members of Congress. What happens to that lawsuit now? Does that become moot, or is there still grounds to move forward with that lawsuit because these Democrats were the targets of these vindictive prosecution attempts anyway?
Hey everybody, Mark Kelly.
Vindictive prosecution
in Atlanta, Georgia, campaigning for John Ossoff.
They're scared about that midterm.
So I'm going to mix civil apples with criminal oranges. What do I mean by that? So this was a criminal indictment that they sought against these 6 members of Congress who had committed no crime. The Senator Mark Kelly piece, and there's overlap because he was one of the senators that they tried to criminally indict. The military, the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, tried to punish him also for making these same truthful, accurate statements about military law requiring soldiers, sailors, airmen, seamen to disobey unlawful orders. He brought a civil suit against Hegseth to put a stop to Hegseth's.
Oh, and by the way, they are still leaking new pictures of Esptein today of all days. Yeah, let's go.
Attempt to punish him for that speech by busting him down in rank and basically stealing some of his retirement pay. That case went to court. There were some preliminary arguments and a hearing held. And one day after the grand jury refused to indict Senator Kelly and the other 5 members of Congress in a civil case, a judge ruled that Pete Hegseth violated the Constitution by trying to punish Senator Kelly for, again, speaking the truth. So that was literally back-to-back defeats of this attempt of the Trump administration to punish members of Congress of the opposite party, shocking, for speaking the truth. So it looks like now both of these things are resolved unless, one, Jeanine Pirro tries again, contrary to today's reporting, to criminally indict them, or two, the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, tries to appeal the judge essentially ruling against Hegseth's attempt to punish Senator Mark Kelly.
So I want to talk about the impact that this decision, especially by these members of the community, not one of whom voted in favor of indicting any of these Democrats. I want to talk about the implications that that's going to have on future efforts by the Trump administration to engage in these vindictive prosecutions. But first, I just want to give a quick note or quick request to those who are watching right now. If you'd like to support our work as we continue to cover any and all legal breaking news, the best way to do that is to subscribe to both of our channels. I'm going to put those links in the post description of this video. So if you're not yet subscribed, it's 100% free to subscribe, but it's a great way to support us and our work. So you can go ahead and hit those subscribe buttons. So Glenn, seeing that this effort was completely unsuccessful by the Trump administration, what kind of an impact does that have moving forward as the administration inevitably attempts to engage in yet another vindictive prosecution, as they've been so wont to do for the past year?
Oh, and they inevitably will try again and again, I fear. But, this is a great and important result writ large, and here's why. Even though this doesn't count as precedent, what happens in a grand jury with respect to whether they vote to indict or not is not precedent in any other case or in any other investigation. But it does show that Donald Trump and his administration have priors. They have priors trying to vindictively prosecute,
Absolutely.
vindictively indict people who have committed no crime. And just as when Senator Mark Kelly filed his civil suit against Hegseth, you bet he raised in that the fact that the Trump administration was also trying to vindictively, criminally prosecute him, not just pursue him civilly. So Donald Trump is sort of racking up the priors. Think criminal history, a criminal record as long as my arm. Well, that's what Donald Trump
And he
is
got
now
the longest
establishing
record
for himself. And in every future potential vindictive prosecution case or investigation before the grand jury, the target of those attempts by Trump will undoubtedly have all of this evidence to present to a court, including what just happened in Trump's efforts to indict corruptly, criminally, notwithstanding that they committed no crimes, indict 6 members of Congress. So all of this couldn't be more valuable. And something else I want to just jump in and add, Brian. People are forever, myself included, talking about how Donald Trump is failing. He's failing on so many fronts. I don't see this as a failure. So, when I think of Donald Trump failing, I think of his health failing. I think of his mental faculties failing. We, the people, have no impact on those failures. That's just Donald Trump failing in various ways. But when it comes to what's happening in grand juries
his attempt
and
didn't
in
go
courtrooms,
forward.
I see that as we, the people,
are winning.
defeating Donald Trump, his dirty DOJ leadership, including Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, right down to Jeanine Pirro, the D.C. U.S. Attorney. The reason I view these as defeats is because, failing connotes or suggests kind of, passivity. This is the people rising up as the conscience of the community. First, in the grand jury, when Donald Trump tries to indict everybody from senators to sandwich throwers, and literally over and over and over and over and over again and on, grand jurors sitting as the conscience of the community,
the PDFers,
have stood up and said, hell no, there's no evidence of crime, or if there is, you don't have probable cause. You can't meet.
There are plenty of people you can go after that's in the Esptein files.
An indictment. Brian, that is we the people defeating Trump's dirty DOJ leadership. Similarly, when Jeanine Pirro fumbles forward, when she can't get felony indictments, for example, for the guy who threw the sandwich at a police officer, or the woman who kind of stepped in between some law enforcement, some immigration officers and somebody they were trying to detain, and they tried to indict her for a felony. The grand jury said, oh, hell no. She fumbles forward and tries to charge them with low-level misdemeanor crimes, which does not require a grand jury indictment. Only felonies do. Jeanine Pirro can simply sign a criminal complaint and charge somebody with a misdemeanor and take them to trial. When she's tried to do that repeatedly, what happens? Well, now it's the trial jurors standing up as the conscience of the community, representing we the people, and finding them not guilty in a D.C. minute. So listen, in so many ways, and not just in courts and in courts of public opinion and in the polls and in marches and protests and rallies, assembling to petition our government for a redress of grievances, and we got us some grievances against our government. We the people are defeating Donald Trump. He's not just failing, we are defeating him.
Glenn, I'm particularly focused on Jeanine Pirro's involvement in all of this. I don't think it's a stretch to say that she abused her position by trying to criminally prosecute members of Congress for repeating what is in the Uniform Code of Military Justice in plain text, black and white. And so are there any sanctions that she would have to shoulder? Is there any recourse here when you have somebody who is a U.S. attorney who is not using their position to follow the law, but rather using their position to abuse it? Like, what about Jeanine Pirro's culpability in all of this? Are we just supposed to sit idly by while somebody with a ton of power gets to just wield it to hurt Democrats for the crime of being Democrats?
This is how I discovered who my great-grandfather really was. And this is how you can do it too.
There is a platform where you can search billions of historical records, uncovering hidden stories of your ancestors.
You start by entering a name.
Brian, there are at least 2 and potentially 3 viable sanctions. One, she abused her official duties as a prosecutor. It is so far beyond the official duties of a U.S. attorney or any federal prosecutor to try to indict the innocent. That subjects her to personal legal liability. So absolutely, these 6 members of Congress could bring a lawsuit in her personal capacity, because she is not cloaked with the protection of immunity, sovereign immunity as a government officer, if she acts beyond the scope of her official duties, which she did. They could sue her, and I suspect they would have a robust and potentially winning case. Second possibility, she can and should be referred to bar counsel, and she should go the way of Trump's other lawyers who end up being disbarred for misconduct in office, misconduct that was undertaken either at the request of or for the benefit of Donald Trump. And then 3, and this might be the outlier, but I never want to forego the possibility of criminal culpability. She has engaged in a conspiracy against rights. What is that? If you try to do something, if you abuse your official power to try to deprive somebody of a constitutional right, like the 4th Amendment right to be free from unreasonable seizures, or the 5th Amendment right to due process of law, both of which arguably are violated when you try to prosecute the innocent, somebody who has committed no crime, I think she potentially subjects herself to criminal liability. And when the rule of law comes back into the light of day, we have a legitimate, not just U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, but Attorney General and President in the Oval Office who actually respect the law and the Constitution. There needs to be a criminal investigation launched against Jeanine Pirro.
I want to finish on that point. Do you think that the Democrats, if we are lucky enough to take control ever again, have the stomach to do it? And what do you say
Hell
to
yeah,
the
we don't have a
subsequent Attorney
choice.
General who has to make that
We
decision
gotta take over.
to, do what Democrats always do, which is just move forward.
Even if it ain't gonna
in
be
deference to
perfect, it's
healing
gonna
the
be better
country,
than this
or
crap.
try and seek some accountability for people who have abused their positions so that there is some deterrent effect for the next person who tries to come in and abuse their position like Jeanine Pirro's doing here.
Brian, if our nation's leadership, particularly law enforcement leadership, again declines to seek accountability for those who have committed crimes against the American people and in violation of our Constitution, then frankly, we don't deserve to keep our republic. We tried it as far back as 1974 when Richard Nixon committed all kinds of crimes against the American people, and we decided that we were just going to put the long national nightmare behind us by declining to hold the criminal president accountable for his crimes. We did it again after Donald Trump launched an attack on not just the U.S. Capitol, but on the democratic process, tried to invalidate the expressed will of the American voters and deny Joe Biden his election win and, steal the power of the presidency for himself. We had an Attorney General in Merrick Garland who just decided we really need to just put it all behind us and didn't pursue accountability for Trump's crimes until virtually the last minute when it was too late. Jack Smith, once he appointed him as special counsel, went gangbusters, aggressively, appropriately so, in the direction of accountability, but it was far too little, too late. Brian, if we choose the same path of no accountability, we don't deserve to keep our republic, and I fear we won't keep our republic.
All right, well, that is a message loud and clear to the people who come next in terms of what their priorities should be. And look, I think, you and I have spoken about this at length, but I think Merrick Garland gave the blueprint of what not to do. And the world that we're living in right now is a testament to exactly that. And I know there are going to be people who are upset that the focus that I'm talking about Merrick Garland, but the reality is Donald Trump unhinged, emboldened, does not happen if Merrick Garland takes a stronger approach, which he didn't do, and now look at the results of that inaction. So again, that message loud and clear, I think, is exactly the kind of message that needs to be amplified. Again, for those who are watching right now, if you'd like to help elevate our voices in this ecosystem and see more legal news as it continues to break, the best way to do that is to subscribe to both of our channels. I'm going to put those links right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. 100% free to subscribe, but a great way to support our work. I'm Brian Taylor Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.
What's to run store?
30 chairs, non-squeak.
What's to run store?
15 non-wobble tables.
What's to run store?
Add 8 cases of pint glasses.
What's to run store?
Lights.
What's to run store?
Add a set of knives.
What's to run store?
What did they use this for?
What's to run store?
Okay, let's go. What's next?
But tonight,
I don't know when this is. Hold on. I need to get over to where the... Hold on. Oh, they say he's panicking. That was 3 hours ago, but still. Yes, here it is.
Can we begin with breaking news from MS Now this hour about Trump-related files? Can we begin with breaking news from MS Now this hour about Trump-related files missing from the DOJ's Esptein files release? Let's bring in MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin, who broke this story. Also with us, our senior White House reporter Von Hilliard and MS Now legal analyst for Manhattan DA assistant DA, that is Catherine Christian. And Lisa, you got this reporting. Walk us through it.
Well, Anna, one of the things I can tell you is that based on documents that are available in the Esptein files, and we're just going to hold up to you what allowed us to get to this reporting. This is an index of witness statements from people who were not expected to testify at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, but whose statements were nonetheless produced to her defense counsel in the
list of
2021 trial. We also have a smaller one with respect to those who were expected to testify. And based on those indices, as well as documents available, we're just going to hold up to you what allowed us to get to this reporting. This is an index of witness statements from people who were not expected to testify at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, but whose statements were nonetheless produced to her defense counsel in the run-up to her 2021 trial. We also have a smaller one with respect to those who were expected to testify. And based on those indices, as well as documents available in the file, MS Now can report that there is at least one witness for whom 3 interviews with the FBI in rapid succession in 2019 are missing. You might say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal about that is that we can also confirm that that woman is the same person who in a 2025 FBI presentation is identified to have accused Donald Trump of a sexual assault when she was between 13 and 15 years old. We know that based on a human source who has confirmed to us that this woman is one and the same. So I want to make this very clear. There is a woman who, according to the FBI and documents compiled last summer, accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting and physically abusing her. One of the things in her accusation is that in addition to forcing her to perform oral sex, he also know that based on a human source who has confirmed to us that this woman is one and the same. So I want to make this very clear. There is a woman who, according to the FBI and documents compiled last summer, accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting and physically abusing her. One of the things in her accusation is that in addition to forcing her to perform oral sex, he also hit her in that same episode.
Yep.
We have now connected that woman to someone who was interviewed by the FBI 4 times in 2019. Of those 4 interview memoranda, which are listed in this index that I'm holding up right here, only one of them can be seen. And in that interview, the accusations against Trump are not present. At the most, she says that she had met Trump on one occasion without detailing it. And when asked how she understood that Esptein was a person who committed abuse against her, she showed FBI agents a picture that she had been sent by a friend. It was a picture that she was reluctant to share with FBI agents because there was somebody else in the photograph. It turned out to be, according to this interview memo, a well-known photograph of Esptein and Trump together. She said that she was reluctant to show them the full image, lest she incriminate someone that she feared could retaliate against her. That's all that we know from what's publicly available in the files. But we know that this woman had other accusations against Trump. Where they are listed or where they've been memorialized, we're not sure, but we can tell you and our viewers that there are 3 other interview memoranda taken by the FBI that are not present anywhere in the Epstein files. And this is a problem that we expect may have recurred with dozens of other witnesses whose files may not have been produced in their totality. Again, this index gives a unique numerical identifier to more than 500 witnesses and lists in numerical order the kinds of documents from which their statements were taken. Everything from...
Y'all still, can you still hear? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, maybe y'all can't hear me.
Problem that we expect may have recurred with dozens of other witnesses whose files may not have been produced in their totality. Again, this index gives a unique numerical identifier to more than 500 witnesses and lists in numerical order the kinds of documents from which their statements were taken. Everything from FBI interview memos to Palm Beach police incident reports to handwritten notes and the like.
Okay, great. Thank you, Denise. Hey, Gina.
You can see as a layperson or as a reporter what has been produced in the files and what hasn't. And it's our expectation and understanding that there are many other instances in which witnesses, many of whom were alleged victims, don't have all of their statements produced. If these were important enough to give to Ghislaine Maxwell's defense, it's unclear to me what the rationale is for withholding them from the American public, particularly given the text of the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
What's the rationale given by the DOJ? Have they given any reason for withholding these documents?
MS Now has not yet obtained a statement from the Department of Justice. However, NPR, which was the first to report on this morning, has obtained a statement from the White House in which they haven't defended the lack of lists in
they
numerical
got
order,
some.
the kinds of documents from which their statements were taken. Everything from FBI interview memos to Palm Beach police incident reports to handwritten notes and the like. Going through those methodically, you can see as a layperson or as a reporter what has been produced in the files and what hasn't. And it's our expectation and understanding that there are many other instances in which witnesses, many of whom were alleged victims, don't have all of their statements produced. If these were important enough to give to Ghislaine Maxwell's defense, it's unclear to me what the rationale is for withholding them from the American public, particularly given the text of the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
What's the rationale given by the DOJ? Have they given any reason for withholding these documents?
MS Now has not yet obtained a statement from the Department of Justice. However, NPR, which was the first to report on this morning, has obtained a statement from the White House in which they haven't defended the lack of of transparency with respect to these 3 interview memoranda. Instead, they have fallen back on their defense that Donald Trump is the most transparent president in history, that he has fully committed to producing documents in compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That's a defense that rings hollow to many of us who have been through these files and have seen not only over-redaction with respect to some suspects, over-redaction with respect to some individuals, under-redaction with respect to survivors, and now inexplicable withholding of documents.
So, Catherine, does this appear to be a violation of the Epstein Transparency Act?
It is, if the purpose of withholding it was for reputational harm, meaning of the President of the United States, because that is an explicitly prohibited ground for withholding a document. Were these documents even produced? Were they taken out by someone in the FBI or DOJ? You know, we know that hundreds of AUSAs and other members of DOJ were looking at these files for redacting. Were they even given those documents? So it's very suspicious, and it goes back to the Florida prosecution, which was considered very corrupt, where there was a non-prosecution agreement given to Mr. Epstein by the then United States Attorney in the Southern District of Florida. I'm assuming these alleged acts occurred in Florida, so it's very problematic.
But if this was part of a 2019 document or some kind of report that happened as recently as 2019, do we have any idea where this report went?
We don't. I will say that this particular, where it comes to the Trump accuser, who's at the center of our documenting these missing documents, she was interviewed by the FBI in 2019. The alleged abuse by Epstein didn't occur in either Florida or New York. It was somewhere else entirely. But we don't know where these went. And I want to say something about how we know the pages are missing and who might have seen them. Because based on NPR's reporting, many of these documents, and I think some of our viewers are familiar with this, they have a number at the very bottom that starts with EFTA for Epstein Files Transparency Act, and then has a number. That number has a meaning. It's basically a consecutive numbering of pages of a production, so that each page has its own unique identifier. NPR basically looked then at the index, compared it to what was produced for this particular witness and her statements, and has, by comparing those page numbers, has counted 50 plus pages that they believe are missing that correspond to these 3 interview memoranda. We have not independently done that ourselves, but I trust that if we were to go through that exercise, they're probably not far off the mark, that there are 50 pages that you would expect to be produced in consecutive order that are missing from this. We can tell you that this particular victim witness had 15 documents that are supposedly reflective of her statements.
15 documents. Hold on.
Over-redaction with respect to some individuals, under-redaction with respect to survivors, and now inexplicable withholding of documents.
So, Catherine, does this appear to be a violation of the Epstein Transparency Act?
It is, if the purpose of withholding it was for reputational harm, meaning of the President of the United States, because that is an explicitly prohibited ground for withholding a document. Were these documents even
NPR, which was the first to report on this morning, has obtained a statement from the White House in which they haven't defended the lack of transparency with respect to these 3 interview memoranda. Instead, they have fallen back on their defense that Donald Trump is the most transparent president in history, that he has fully committed to producing documents in compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That's a defense that rings hollow to many of us who have been through these files and have seen not only over-redaction with respect to some suspects, over-redaction with respect to some individuals, under-redaction with respect to survivors, and now inexplicable withholding of documents.
So, Catherine, does this appear to be a violation of the Epstein Transparency Act?
It is, if the purpose of withholding it was for reputational harm, meaning of the President of the United States, because that is an explicitly prohibited ground for withholding a document. Were these documents even produced? Were they taken out by someone in the FBI or DOJ? You know, we know that hundreds of AUSAs and other members of DOJ were looking at these files and redacting. Were they even given those documents? So it's very suspicious, and it goes back to the Florida prosecution, which was can be considered very corrupt, where There was a non-prosecution agreement given to Mr. Epstein by the then United States Attorney in the Southern District of Florida. I'm assuming these alleged acts occurred in Florida, so it's very problematic.
But if this was part of a 2019 document or some kind of report that happened as recently as 2019, do we have any idea where this report went?
We don't. I will say that this particular, where it comes to the Trump accuser, who's at the center of our documenting these missing documents, she was interviewed by the FBI in 2019. The alleged abuse by Epstein didn't occur in either Florida or New York. It was somewhere else entirely. But we don't know where these went. And I want to say something about how we know the pages are missing and who might have seen them. Because based on NPR's reporting, many of these documents, and I think some of our viewers are familiar with this, they have a number at the very bottom that starts with EFTA for Epstein Files Transparency Act, and then has a number. That number has a meaning. It's basically a consecutive numbering of pages of a production.
Right.
So that each
Missing
page has
pages.
its own unique identifier. NPR basically looked then at the index, compared it to what was produced for this particular witness and her statements, and has, by comparing those page numbers, has counted 50 plus pages that they believe are missing that correspond to these 3 interview memoranda. We have not independently done that ourselves, but I trust that if we were to go through that exercise, they're probably not far off the mark, that there are 50 pages that you would expect to be produced in consecutive order that are missing from this. We can tell you that this particular victim witness had 15 documents that are supposedly reflective of her statements. We, as well as NPR, as well as another independent journalist, have all looked for each of those 15 documents, and all of us collectively have found only 7 of those 15. Again, all 15 of them are reflective of statements that she made, either to federal law enforcement, to state police, via email, but they are all supposed to be reflective of her accounting of events in one way or another, and yet more than half of the documents that are supposedly attributable to this person are missing, including 3 memoranda prepared by the FBI reflecting interviews that they conducted with her in fall and winter of, in the fall and summer of 2019.
So what I think is also very important to underscore here is that not all of her interview files are missing, it's just some of the interview files, right?
Most, because we know that this woman gave 4 interviews to the FBI, at least according to this index. Only 1 of those interview memoranda has been shared with the public. That interview doesn't contain any of her apparent allegations against Donald Trump, and yet we know that she has made
None
them.
of them.
How do we know that? Because the FBI's own internal correspondence and
They
accounting
are
of
just
events
so
in one
busted.
way or another, and yet more than half of the documents that are supposedly attributable to this person are
If
missing.
he's been exonerated, he's only been exonerated because y'all done hid the files, the report, the evidence.
And winter
Ooh.
of, in the fall and summer of 2019.
So what I think is also very important to underscore here is that not all of her interview files are missing, it's just some of the interview files, right?
Most, because we know that this woman gave 4 interviews to the FBI, at least according to this index. Only 1 of those interview memoranda has been shared with the public. That interview doesn't contain any of her apparent allegations against Donald Trump, and yet we know that she has made them. How do we know that? Because the FBI's own internal correspondence and a presentation that they put together in the summer of 2025 reflects that this woman is also the same person who accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her. Where she said
And
that,
physically.
to whom she said that, we still don't know because 3 of her interview memoranda are missing from the public production of the files.
Let me go to Vaughn because we're just hours away now from the president delivering his State of the Union address, Vaughn, and several Epstein survivors and their families will be in that audience. Will he acknowledge them or even the release of the files?
Of course he's not.
generally?
There is no reason to believe that he will, and none of the preview that has come out of this White House of the State of the Union address has indicated any desire to address the Epstein survivors or the Epstein files. And let's be very clear. Number one, there has not been a single time in which President Trump has expressed sympathy or for regret on behalf of the victims of
He
Jeffrey
felt
Epstein
entitled.
and Ghislaine Maxwell. Number two, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is no longer in Congress. She will not be there tonight. largely in part to Donald Trump calling her a traitor because she was key to that discharge petition that led to the release of these very files. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has explicitly said that Donald Trump, the sitting president, tried to pressure her to not have these files released to the public, saying in part, according to Greene, that they would hurt some of his friends. Number three, when it pertains to this new reporting here from Lisa, I think it's very important that we go back to just 3 weeks ago when these initial files were released by the Department of Justice, that the DOJ in an official press release stated the following: some of the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they have a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. That was the official statement of this Department of Justice. And now Lisa has gone through these documents, but I think it is important in our reporting that there is, based off of the documents that are available and those that are clearly have not been released to the public, there has been no indication, I'll let Lisa correct me, that this particular witness was ever deemed by the FBI or the Department of Justice to be a witness that was not credible.
Oh, wow. What is this one?
Joining me now, Santiago Mayer, Executive Director of Voters of Tomorrow. Jeff Nussbaum is former senior speechwriter for President Joe Biden and author of Undelivered, the never-heard speeches that would have rewritten history. Sarah Matthews is back with us as well. So, Santiago, polls show that young Trump voters have become increasingly unhappy with the president.
Thank you, Kane Light, for the torch.
Files, the economy,
thank you,
healthcare.
thank you.
Does that match what you're hearing from young people? Set the stage for tonight.
Yeah, Chris, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I think that what we're going to hear tonight is really a life fest of unprecedented proportions. Because like you said, Donald Trump has simply not delivered for young Americans. He ran on bringing down the cost of living. He ran on bringing peace and calm throughout the world.
He's been a failure.
He ran on making housing more affordable and accessible to our generation. And he has failed on all three. And if I'm being honest, I think saying he has failed is being a little charitable to him because he hasn't even tried. He used our generation to get elected, and he immediately abandoned all of our priorities once in
Absolutely.
office. That's why 67%
That's how he do business.
of young Americans disapprove of him. That's why even 58% of young men now say that he has personally affected their finances. And I think that we're going to see the results of that in November. But tonight, there is very little that he can say that is going to make young people simply not feel the effects of his policies.
So, Sarah, some of the most influential podcasters who have had the attention of young male voters have been souring on the president's policies. Take a listen.
This was a breaking point for me. I didn't think what's happening right now with ICE could happen in America. I genuinely did not think that was possible. I thought our institution, I thought the Constitution would hold up.
Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
They made every mistake. Liberation Day disaster.
Every mistake.
Disaster.
Y'all pumped him up. Y'all believe the hype.
Epstein files.
And now he's trying to take out everybody.
Disaster. All self-inflicted. Trump personnel, Trump policy, Trump strategy, Trump playbook. We tried it your way. It didn't work. You. Now we don't vote.
What?
Is there anything he can say tonight to win them back?
Let me just say that this was so predictable. What was
personnel, Trump policy, Trump strategy, Trump playbook. We tried it your way. It didn't work. You. Now we don't vote.
Is there anything he can say tonight?
Is he mad, man?
Let me just say that this was so predictable what was going to happen in Trump 2.0. There were folks like myself who served in the first Trump administration, who were on the campaign trail leading up to the 2024 election, who were warning about all this and sounding the alarm. But these podcast bros decided that they wanted to support the president.
Ooh,
And now
with
they're
his
not buying
mouth
remorse.
and his
So,
fingers.
you reap what you sow, and they
Wow.
are paying the consequences. But unfortunately, so many Americans are as well. Those who fell for Trump's campaign promises, because as we've laid out, he has not followed through on any of them. He said that he would lower the cost of living, but then he comes out and says that the affordability crisis is a hoax. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he can square that
He
circle.
just played all yeah. I can't believe y'all believe that hype.
There is a way to come back from this right now. I think that what we've seen in the recent polling, showing that he's now more unpopular than Joe Biden, says it all. That people are really unhappy
and on top of that, hold up. And on top of that, y'all say that ain't even Joe Biden. Yeah, y'all say that's the I don't. Is it a reptilian? Is it a robot? What is it? I mean, y'all say he been gone. That's why he was laying heavy on that ADOLPH stuff. Hell, he knew that they had already took him out, and they just had somebody in there all disguised. And it was one of them robots. See, this is why I'm trying to get y'all to understand, whoever that was a long time ago, talking about AI ain't going to be taking nobody's job. Hell, if they could get a replacement and somebody to fill in for the president's position, you think they can't put some machine in place of you and your job? Come on, people. Come on, people. They saying Biden been gone since 19? So that whole time, it wasn't even him. It was a robot. Oh, yeah, right. And y'all put his ass in office.
Whether it comes to whether it be the economy or whether it be the immigration enforcement and mass deportations that we've seen. We see in recent polling that people think ICE has gone too far. People wanted immigration enforcement, but they didn't want all the violence and chaos that we're seeing happen.
Everything has been a test.
Thanks to Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski's leadership. So I think that Trump is going to have a hard time selling this. His only saving grace right now is that there probably aren't going to be a lot of people who are tuning into this speech, and Trump has a tendency to go very long
all it's going to be is a lie.
So I think that even if people tune in, they're going to be listening.
If you tune in, that just means you want to hear the lie. The lie. In all this time, everything that they have been doing, even COVID, was a test to see how people are going to operate, see if they're going to comply. And then flood you with a cocktail to take you out when they decide it's time to designate it. Man, this is some of the craziest stuff ever. All of it is a test. Yeah.
For the first 15 minutes and probably change the channel. So unless there's some sort
I ain't going to give him 15 minutes.
Catch the attention of millions of Americans, this will probably be a blip on the radar for most people. But I do think that most people are very upset with the failure to deliver.
We don't even know if it's going to be him.
Presidency. So he's going to have a hard time between now and the midterms of making good on those
promises. He may have a dummy.
Help win back some of those voters for the Republican Party if he wants to help their chances in the midterm elections come November.
So, Jeff, let's talk about this viral moment. Everybody wants a good one, but take us behind the scenes. Can that be crafted? Are there discussions about it? Oh, that's going to hit. That's going to end up, going viral. How does that work?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I heartily agree with what we've heard from the other panelists. But it's two things. The State of the Union provides one of the few opportunities to have an extended period of time to make an argument, to actually spell out your policies, explain why you've pursued them and what they're doing. Now, this is a president who more often would prefer to have an argument than make an argument. And so when it comes to viral moments, those certainly come from argumentative moments, either from the floor, which has happened, which I think King Jeffries hopes will not happen this time, or from what are called Sputnik stories. And these are the people who are featured in the State of the Union, whose stories get told. And that's generally when you're working on speeches like this, where you're trying to have viral moments. These are called Sputnik stories, named for Lenny Sputnik, who President Reagan featured in 1982. This is someone who jumped into the Potomac River at freezing to rescue people from a plane crash. And so this has become a thing, and this is a thing Trump uses quite a bit to try to bask in the reflected glow of other people or use other people's stories to try to tell his stories. So you certainly write with those in mind. Now, again, you want your viral moments to be the ones advancing your policy and advancing your agenda. And again, this is a president who's chosen to use combat to create viral moments. But I think, as you've heard earlier in this conversation, when people are unhappy, when policies are unpopular, people will start to see those for what they are, which is distractions. And that's the risk that the president runs tonight.
So I want to go back, Santiago, to something that we heard from Nick Fuentes when he said, forget it, in a more colorful way. He said, we don't vote. And I wonder what is the reaction if young voters are really disaffected? Do they just say, obviously, there's nothing we can do about it, the system's broken, and they stay home? Or is there a real opening for Democrats here? Will they vote?
Yeah, there is definitely an opening for Democrats, but this is something that I talk about a lot with Democratic strategists. Just because they are angry at Donald Trump and Republicans, it does not mean that they are coming home Democrats. And I think it is incumbent upon Democratic leadership and on Governor Spanberger tonight, for example, to make a real argument as to how Democrats are going to improve the lives of young voters. We have seen for many years the argument essentially be, we are not the other guy. That needs to change. We need to be providing a bold, a big, forward, positive vision as to how we're going to increase, how we're going to not just increase participation, but how we're going to actually make life better. I think that's what we saw last November in New York and Virginia and New Jersey. All those candidates made incredibly poignant arguments about specifically what they were going to do to make young people's lives better. And unless Democrats are doing that, and unless they're doing it at scale, there's a very high chance they simply stay home in November.
Well, I think that brings us to, Jeff, the challenges for Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. I mean, this is considered largely a thankless job. You never have quite the same numbers, right, that the president had. So how does she capitalize on it?
Yeah, the real risk is that this speech becomes a mini speech, and I've been
oh my God, if he brings up Biden, oh my God.
It's just difficult, right? The president has the majesty of both houses of Congress. It really is a bully pulpit. Using Teddy Roosevelt's word for good, of course, this president may turn it into a bully pulpit as a bully. But so the trick is often, instead of trying to do everything in 7 or 9 minutes, which really does reinforce that mini-me tendency, is to pick 2 or 3 and hammer them home. I think already her choice of a venue is important. It's America's 250th birthday, reminding people what America is about, reminding people why we have a democracy, why we fight against autocracies, is going to be really valuable. And so in that sense, she's already chosen a place and a format that will help make that focused argument that I believe she has a chance to make. And I think you're going to see in her, in part because she's dynamic, in part because she has served her country in the CIA and not just in Congress. I think you'll see her have more success with this than others have had in the past. The challenge, of course, is that success might have to come at about 1 a.m. If the president follows through on a speech that is Fidel Castro-esque, both in terms of its length and its dismissal of democracy.
Let me get out of this one. I gotta go. Come on.
I'm gonna show you how to take this old dresser drawer and turn it.
The entirety.
Let's go.
There is explosive, brand new reporting, new today, on missing Epstein files and shocking testimony from a witness that has made an accusation against none other than Donald Trump himself. It is reporting that suggests a cover-up inside the Trump Justice Department and could be a possible explanation to a question that has dogged Donald Trump throughout the entirety of his second term as president, the entirety really of the Epstein scandal. In the face of major public backlash, including from deep inside his own political coalition. Why is Donald Trump working so hard to block the release of the Epstein files? Our colleagues Lisa Rubin and Michael Schnell confirm news first reported by independent journalists Roger Sollenberger and NPR that the Justice Department has withheld files that contain allegations that Donald Trump's sexual explanation to a question that has dogged Donald Trump throughout the entirety of his second term as president, the entirety really of the Epstein scandal. Explanation to a question that has dogged Donald Trump throughout the entirety of his second term as president, the entirety really of the Epstein scandal. In the face of major public backlash, including from deep inside his own political coalition, why is Donald Trump working so hard to block the release of the Epstein files? Our colleagues Lisa Rubin and Michael Schnell confirm news first reported by independent journalists Roger Sollenberger and NPR that the Justice Department has withheld files that contain allegations that Donald Trump sexually abused a person who was a minor at the time. That is despite the fact that the Justice Department is now legally mandated to publicly release all of the Epstein files. NPR reports that more than 50 pages of notes and memos about the FBI's interviews with this accuser are missing. A source who has viewed the documents tells us this, quote, a woman interviewed by the FBI in July 2019 about her Epstein allegations is the same woman who alleged that Trump forced her to perform oral sex on him 35 years ago when she was 13 or 14 years old, and he subsequently hit her. That allegation appears in a 2025 PowerPoint presentation detailing each of the FBI's Epstein-related investigations and a spreadsheet of unconfirmed tips that were called into the Bureau's National Threat Operations Center. MS Now can report that the FBI interviewed her 4 times. A memo from only one of those 4 times, one of those 4 interviews, is publicly available. In a tweet, the Justice Department denies that anything has been deleted, adding this explanation, quote, all responsive documents have been produced unless a document falls within one of the following categories: duplicates, privileged, or part of an ongoing federal investigation, end quote. We have also reached out to the White House for comment and have yet to hear back. In a statement for NPR, however, the White House claimed that Trump has been, quote, totally exonerated on anything related to Epstein. Now, we do not know if this allegation made against Donald Trump about a 13 or 14-year-old victim is true, but we do know what the FBI thought. We know what they did, at least. We know they took it seriously enough to interview this person several times, and that the accusation came up again in 2025 while Donald Trump was president again and facing massive pressure to release the files, which of course leads us really to have more questions. As NPR reports, the accuser's name was being circulated by the FBI in late July and early August with the purpose of setting up an interview. That would be weeks after the release of the memo that kicked up the public firestorm around the case. That memo said, quote, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, end quote. 2 months later, Kash Patel said this under oath.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information.
Liar.
None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
No one? The files were withheld. Why did the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, tell Congress in a letter 10 days ago that, quote, no records were withheld or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. We're also learning about these missing files on the same day of Donald Trump's State of the Union address. Yep. A half a dozen Democrats will bring survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse to Congress to watch that speech. Missing files from the criminal cases into deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein related to Donald Trump himself is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Former Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI, National Security Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg is here. Plus, former top official at the Justice Department, legal analyst Andrew Weissman joins us. With me here at the table, our senior legal reporter, Lisa Rubin's here, and political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill's here. Lisa, I want to pull back the curtain for our viewers who I think have gotten to know a lot of the survivors that we get to talk to together here, and I think have become pretty steeped in the facts and the lines of reporting, and just talk a little bit about what we have in the introduction and the reporting that you credit in your own reporting today, that an independent journalist had some of this reporting for weeks. Other news organizations have been pursuing that line of reporting, and NPR really blew it open today with their reporting. You quickly matched it as it was reporting you've been working on for a long time. Well, we have. And Nicole, I think one of the things that prevented us and other mainstream media outlets from reporting on this sooner was it wasn't entirely clear how Roger Sullenberger had connected the dots. He had reported last week that there was an accuser. We had known about this accuser because we could see those 2025 FBI documents reflecting the fact that at some point a woman came forward to say that when she was 13 or 14 years old, Donald Trump had sexually assaulted her and physically abused her too in the form of hitting her. What we didn't know is that how to connect the dots between that woman, the woman in the 2025 accounts, and the woman Roger Sullenberger said she was, which was someone who the FBI had talked to in 2019, who had accused Jeffrey Epstein also of abusing her when she was a teenager in the 1980s. It's because we now have a human source who has seen the documents and has confirmed for us that the name in the unredacted documents matches both accounts that we can now say that the woman discussed in 2025 as having made these allegations against Donald Trump is also the same person who was interviewed by the FBI, not just once, but 4 times in 2019 after she first came forward to say she had information about Jeffrey Epstein. There is a lingering mystery, though, and one of the reasons that I think people like Roger and NPR and we are interested in the missing documents is because on the face of the one FBI interview memo that we do have, that allegation against Donald Trump is not included therein. At one point during that interview, the woman tells her account to the FBI agents of how she comes to understand that a man she knew only as Jeff in the 1980s, for whom she was supposed to babysit, only to discover that there was no wife or children in the house. How she came to learn that that man was Jeffrey Epstein. She says it's because someone that she confided in at the time sends her a text message with a photograph of Jeffrey Epstein. And then she asks the FBI agents whether she can crop that photo because somebody else is pictured in it, and she doesn't want to incriminate that person, nor does she want to do anything that would expose her to retaliation, as her then lawyer explains. That's when the FBI agents document that the other person in the photograph is Donald Trump. And she appears to be very sensitive about that. They ask her, have you ever met that person? And she acknowledges that she has, but does not further elaborate. Other than that, however, there is nothing about Donald Trump on the face of that 2019 interview with the woman. But we do know from an index of witness statements that is also in these files that she spoke to the FBI on 3 other occasions. In all 4 interviews, the handwritten notes taken by an FBI agent who was present has not been shared with the public, and each of those 3 successive FBI interviews that follow the first one, those also aren't present. And the department's explanation today, I think, defies credulity in some ways. First of all, nobody is asserting that the documents were deleted. The allegation, I would say, or rather the implication of what we're seeing in the files is that they were never produced in the first place. And the question is why? Because they are right to say there are certain cognizable reasons why you would withhold documents. One of them is for victim privacy and safety, and yet we also know that they produced one such interview memo already with heavy redactions. That option was certainly available to them. They also claim that they are withholding certain documents on the basis of privilege. Privilege is not a basis that was recognized by the Epstein Files Transparency Act as any reason why the Department of Justice was entitled to hold things back. But even if it were, Claire knows as a former prosecutor, Andrew certainly knows, that when we're talking about a document that reflects a conversation between the FBI or Department of Justice officials on one side of the table and a witness on the other, there is nothing in that back and forth that could be remotely attorney-client privileged. And it's not even clear that it could qualify for what the department calls deliberative process privilege, particularly when they have produced so many other memoranda of witness interviews. It just doesn't hold up. And so I think it's important that we continue to hold the department to account and ask them, why aren't these other 3 interview memos in the files? Where are the notes? And we should also look at the indexes that they've provided for other witness statements. There are more than 540 witnesses whose statements they produced to Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers in the lead up to her criminal trial. It may be that for many of those witnesses as well, including people that we considered critical to the Epstein saga, there are also missing memoranda and notes. There's also a separate index for those people who were expected to testify at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. I can tell you from looking at them, while we have, for example, there's one witness who testified in Ghislaine's trial as Jane. She has a Trump accusation of her own. It's not that Trump sexually assaulted her, but it's that when she was 14 years old, she was brought to Mar-a-Lago by Jeffrey Epstein to meet Donald Trump. And she has never wavered in that. She said that to the FBI consistently. People close to her and other interview memoranda have said that. And she testified to that at trial. And yet, the handwritten notes that underlay her interview memoranda, those are missing as well.
Okay, so that's the missing piece. Let me deal with the human story that's being told. So a child, a 13 or 14-year-old, was, or allegedly reported, this hideous sexual assault followed by a physical assault, and accuses Donald Trump.
But we don't know where she did that or how she did that, because the only document that tells us that she made that accusation is a 2025 spreadsheet and an accompanying presentation that the FBI put together when they were theoretically sort of getting their minds around the fact that they might have to produce files in response either to a subpoena or to some act of Congress. But the underlying document memorializing her making that accusation, which I imagine would be an accusation longer than 2 or 3 lines, which appear in the spreadsheet that we have from the FBI or their presentation, we don't know where that is. When did this woman say that? We know it's the same woman, but we don't know when she said it, to whom she said it, who was in the room,
Big old
and how she
cover-up.
detailed it. Those are mysteries that the American public deserves answers to, Nicole.
And he won't even say any. Oh my God. Ugh. Oh my God.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to thank my colleagues with the Democratic Women's Caucus, to all of our Democrats on the Oversight and Judiciary Committee, and for all you are doing to build a world free, excuse me, from the...
Hold on.
Welcome to Ben on Break. Everybody's talking about the People's State of the Union, just Washington National Mall. That's where the Midas Touch Network and Move On will be holding our State of the Union, the People's State of the Union. Of course, we're boycotting the State of the Union here on the Midas Touch Network, which was a relatively easy decision. Why would we want to? Authoritarian festival. Why would we want to platform someone who's going to just continue to lie, and someone who's already broken down all the traditions and norms and has ripped to shred our Constitution? So when people are like, but it's tradition, well, if you follow the tradition of democracy, even if I disagree with you politically, then I'll say that people should be showing up. But ultimately, if you rip to shreds the Constitution, if you don't support the traditions and norms of our country, and you engage in the types of behavior that Donald Trump and his despicable regime has, this is a natural consequence, and it's not even a hard decision to make.
It's
frankly.
not.
I mean, why would I live stream the State of the Union where we just know he's going to lie the entire time? Everything is great. We've
It's
never
not
been
gonna
richer.
lie in my
Things are
face.
amazing. Things couldn't be better. Inflation is
It's
down. No one even talks about
Biden is better than Biden.
affordability anymore,
Remember
'cause
Biden?
I defeated
The
affordability
auto
issues.
pen. Yeah, right.
So it's not even an issue anymore. We've never been stronger. I've settled 8 wars, 9 wars if you come to think about it. I've settled 9 wars. I created the border peace. The border peace is what we called it. And we've totally secured the border, and the heroic aspects of ICE and Border Patrol were so amazing, and and everybody's very grateful, and And this is finally, after all of the destruction from a guy named Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe. It's really bad times. I saved our nation. I rebuilt the military. I did everything. Everything was me, and it's amazing. And the Dow is over 50,000. So it isn't. Everything couldn't be better. There it is. I did the speech for you. Okay, maybe he does the noises. Maybe he throws in that. Maybe he does a little. What's his new line that he talks about lately? That there's a man who's trying to violently kiss him. There's a man, he tried to violently kiss me, and I told him, I'm a good little boy. I told him I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. Everybody, the Supreme Court's going to be there. The Supreme Court, you made a very bad decision. Tariffs, it's a word. It's a word. I use that word, tariffs. And I'm a good reader. I read paragraphs really well, and I know from the paragraphs that I read that I can do tariffs. Come to think about it, just think. Why is it that I can destroy countries, but I can't impose a tariff? Does that make it? But look, with what the power the Supreme Court gave me, I'll make my tariffs even stronger. There'll be stronger tariffs. Everybody will get rebates, $2,000.
It's double that now.
$5,000 rebates.
It's double that.
Rich, winning. Have you ever heard of winning this much? You're gonna say, please stop all of the winning. And I have a guest with me right here, and here's the guest. And the guest is someone who who's transitioned, and now they transitioned. And now they transition back, and at the end of the day, look who we have here. Let's be clear. Under my administration, we say no to men in women's bathrooms and sports.
Yeah, but you fooling with kids and eating babies.
Penises and vaginas, everybody, and I'm very strong on that. I told you I'm very strong.
I've tried them both.
That's what the State of the Union is ultimately going to be. Somalians this, Somalians that. Okay, I did it for you. I did the whole bit. That's what's going to happen. So the MAGA Republicans are really pissed at the Midas Touch Network. We're working with Move On. We're the distributor. We're carrying the People's State of the Union. We'll have about 40 members of Congress, senators, members of the House of Representatives will be there. What I expect when our People's State of the Union starts, I think you're going to see a very compelling scene with all of these lawmakers on the stage, shoulder to shoulder in solidarity with each other. I think that's going to be a photo that will be etched in the history books.
We'll be there.
My gut of what we're going to see. MAGA Mike Johnson attacking the Midas Touch Network. He said there's already just kind of 5,000 people or so just hanging out there in that waiting room. And so, you could watch our videos throughout the day, go hang in the waiting room, and you could message people throughout the day and chat about what you expect is going to happen. But it starts 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And so looking forward to that. All right. MAGA Mike Johnson attacking the Midas Touch Network. He says that we are disgraceful. We are horrible. We are extremists. We're the ones breaking tradition, he says. Here's what MAGA Mike has to say moments ago.
Who cares?
It's shameful that they would boycott an address. We don't do that. Republicans don't do that. Doesn't matter if there's a president.
No, y'all play with babies.
We don't skip out.
And kids.
Our constituents want and need us to be here. Every member of this House represents over 750,000 people. They're disenfranchised if you're not sitting in the seat to be a part of the role and the responsibility of Congress. I think it's shameful. Republicans have a far simpler and far superior message for Americans watching at home. We're putting more money back in your pockets. We're restoring peace through strength. We're defending our border and deporting criminal illegal aliens. We're standing up for American industry and manufacturing. And we're making American workers, not foreign countries, the clear winners in this American economy. Those are not talking points. That is what we have delivered. It's called Republican results. And we are proud to run on that message in this fateful midterm election year.
Hey, run on it. Donald Trump says he's going to speak for 3 hours tonight.
Oh,
He
Lord.
says it's going to last 3 hours, the State of the Union. I saw somebody say this must be a threat, inflicting more psychological torture on Americans. 3 hours? Okay. It's ridiculous. The good news is you're not going to be watching that. You're going to be watching the People's State of the Union here on the Midas Touch Network. We'll then bring you the rebuttal by Governor Spanberger of Virginia. That's the official Democratic rebuttal. Then separately, although we'll keep it on the same feed, we'll bring you the official rebuttal from the Working Families Party, Summer Lee. So you'll see all of the rebuttals throughout the day. We have our Washington, D.C. Bureau working really hard right now, interviewing members of Congress. So I hope in a little bit to get you a video that will show you what's going down throughout Congress. But what's Donald Trump's big focus today? Like, what's one of the things
Who
that
cares?
he's
What?
really been pushing? Well, Donald Trump has launched a new website to sell a new version of Trump watches. And they're running Trump watches ads on state regime media, which is Fox and others. I'm only going to play a small clip of it, but anyway, here, play this clip.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it's for.
What his name on it?
Okay, we don't need to play any more of that, but that's one of the things that he's doing. What else did we learn this morning as well? Well, we learned that, remember those meme coins that Donald Trump was selling during his inauguration? Well, we got some data now from the meme coins. See right here that the Trump meme coins, the official Trump and Melania tokens have collapsed 92% and 99% from their all-time highs respectively. Any damage to retail investors has been staggering, while insiders, meaning Trump and people Trump knows, while insiders cashed out over $600 million through fees and token sales. Retail holders of these tokens absorbed the losses at a ratio of 20 to 1. For every dollar insiders earned, ordinarily investors lost $20 in total. Retail losses exceeded $4.3 billion across nearly 2 million crypto wallets currently underwater. The concentration of gains is equally striking. Just 45 whale wallets insiders extracted a combined $1.2 billion, and the sell-off may not be over. Think about that. So you're telling me and lecturing me about traditions and norms when you have
Welcome to a special pre-State of the Union Address edition of Legal AF. What we're watching and what's casting a pall over Donald Trump's attempt to claim credit for some amazing developments that the rest of America doesn't understand at the State of the Union is the fact that there is a shutdown, at least a partial shutdown of the government, involving Department of Homeland Security, because the Democrats are holding steady and steadfast to obtain changes in a corrupt, bankrupt organization we call ICE. And that has also led to another oversight committee hearing, a bicameral oversight committee hearing, in which we had an ICE whistleblower, a lawyer for ICE, talk about training, the deficiency in training in ICE, in a way that puts a lie to some things that were said under oath by the head of ICE a couple of weeks ago, Todd Lyons. And so these issues are all coming to a head now. All these worlds are colliding with the State of the Union address, with the shutdown, a vote concerning the shutdown. And of course, when I'm thinking oversight committee hearings, I have to think we need to get Senator Richard Blumenthal, the senior senator from Connecticut, who's the ranking member of the permanent subcommittee on investigations in the Senate, who chaired yesterday's hearing. Senator Blumenthal, thank you for joining Legal AF.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we got, we just had you on a couple of weeks ago after some other oversight committee hearings. But here we had an ICE whistleblower, Ryan Schwank, testify, a lawyer no less, at the academy to train all ICE agents. And he had some devastating information which for me puts a lie to things that were told to you under oath by the head of ICE. What was your takeaway? We're going to play it in a minute, but what was your takeaway for Mr. Schwenk's testimony?
First and foremost, Michael, and I really appreciate your calling attention to this hearing of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. I'm the ranking member, not the chair, so the hearing was a spotlight forum, as we call it, and the hero was Ryan Schwenk, a former legal advisor and counselor and trainer for ICE. And his testimony was absolutely staggering because it was juxtaposed against another witness, Diana Gibson Brown, whose husband was literally dragged out of their home with armed paramilitary type ICE agents without a judicial warrant. She is a United States citizen. And, you know, America has been watching what's happening in the streets and neighborhoods of Minneapolis, as well as Chicago and California and all across the country, where ICE agents have been forcibly entering homes without judicial warrants in violation of the Fourth Amendment. And frankly, I've been aghast. I think most Americans have been appalled and wondering, how could this happen in America? And the answer was provided by this ICE whistleblower.
In fact, why don't we show the clip of Mr. Schwenk's testimony, and then we can come back to your reaction of it. And then you had a interesting back and forth with him about the Fourth Amendment and training around that. Let's play the ICE whistleblower.
I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when I joined ICE on August 1st, 2021, as an assistant chief counsel. I followed that oath for 4.5 years, working side by side with ICE officers. And I followed it when I resigned on February 13th, 2026, a little over a week ago, so that I could speak to you today. I am here because I am duty-bound to report the legally required training program at the ICE Academy is deficient, defective, and broken. 5 months ago, I was asked to teach the law to new cadets at the ICE Academy in Glencoe, Georgia, where ICE is training its new, inexperienced recruits. I volunteered, those without law enforcement training, I volunteered to take on this assignment based on my experience in law enforcement oversight, including at the state and local level prior to my work with ICE. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution.
He received what?
Without a judicial warrant. In law enforcement oversight, including at the state and local level prior to my work with ICE. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes prior to my work with ICE. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant. For the last 5 months, I watched ICE dismantle the training program, cutting 240 hours of vital classes from a 584-hour program. Classes that teach the Constitution, our legal system, firearms training, the use of force, lawful arrests, proper detention, and the limits of officers' authority. For example, they ceased all of the legal instructions regarding use of force. This means that cadets are not taught what it means to be objectively reasonable, the very standard which the law requires them to meet when deciding whether or not to use deadly force. Our jobs as instructors are to teach them so well that they can make split-second decisions about what they can and cannot do in life or death situations. Yet, in the name of churning out an endless stream of officers, DHS leadership has dismantled the academic and practical tests that we need to know if cadets can safely and lawfully perform their job. All to satisfy an administration demanding they train thousands of new officers before the end of the year. DHS told the public that new cadets receive all the training they need to perform their duties.
Lies.
That no critical material or standards have been cut.
Lies.
This is a lie.
Staggering indeed. Senator, how did that play in the room when you have this whistleblower who effectively says we have a lawless rogue agency that's trained to be lawless and rogue?
I think it was absolutely stunning to my colleagues.
To hear it.
You know, let's be real.
I
There were no
mean,
Republicans in the room.
he was just bold enough
Republicans
to
are in
say
the
it.
state of
Surely they
denial.
knew that. Hold on, that's all I needed to hear. He said it. Bold. Shout out to you. Come on, I got someplace else to go. Then I gotta get back. I'm gonna hear this. I wanna hear her make fun of him. Well, is it making fun of him? Telling the truth.
This is what would happen to your body if you ate mood sleep gummies every day. Day 1, you take your first gummy at
to die for Israel, sign up for the military. I don't even really think there's a conversation to be had about what Trump's going to do anymore. It's Bibi Netanyahu. What does Bibi Netanyahu want, and what is America going to get? Because there's no explanation for it at all. It's like Bibi demands the ships, they go, and then Trump tweets something weird after the fact. I just tell Americans, don't send your sons, don't sign up for the military. This is not the United States military, it's something to the United States. It belongs to Israel. So if you want to die for Israel, sign up for the military today.
Trump is just a total puppet of Israel. That's what many of us dissidents have thought for a long time. But that's what Candace Owens is saying here, one of the most prominent voices on the right that's backed away from her previous support of Trump over this issue. What does she think is at the heart of this? She gets into that in this clip with the Hodge twins, and why she thinks Trump is so beholden to Netanyahu and Israel first over actual Americans, and what she thinks this means for America's political future. She gets into it right here. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Why do you think the switch up? Why is he trying to label people on the right that's trying to really find out about Charlie? Why are they trying to paint us as like just grifters and conspiracy theorists?
I don't even really think there's a conversation to be had about what Trump's going to do anymore. It's Bibi Netanyahu. What does Bibi Netanyahu want, and what is America going to get? Because there's no explanation for it at all. It's like Bibi demands the ships, they go, and then Trump tweets something weird after the fact. I just tell Americans, don't send your sons, don't sign up for the military. This is not the United States military, it's something to do with the United States. It belongs to Israel. So I don't even really think there's a conversation to be had about what Trump's going to do anymore. It's Bibi Netanyahu. What does Bibi Netanyahu want, and what is America going to get? Because there's no explanation for it at all. It's like Bibi demands the ships, they go, and then Trump tweets something weird after the fact. I just tell Americans, don't send your sons, don't sign up for the military. This is not the United States military, it's something to do with the United States. It belongs to Israel. So if you want to die for Israel, sign up for the military today.
Oh, wow.
Trump is just a total puppet of Israel. That's what many of us dissidents have thought for a long time. But that's what Candace Owens is saying here, one of the most prominent voices on the right that's backed away from her previous support of Trump over this issue. What does she think is at the heart of this? She gets into that in this clip with the Hodge twins, and why she thinks Trump is so beholden to Netanyahu and Israel first over actual Americans, and what she thinks this means for America's political future. She gets into it right here. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Why do you think the switch up? Why is he trying to label people on the right that's trying to really find out about Charlie? Why are they trying to paint us as like just grifters and conspiracy theorists?
Because the boss has a boss. Trump took $200 million from Miriam Adelson. Charlie stepped on Bibi Netanyahu's toes
a total
when he went head-to-head to him over Iran back in May, I believe, was when it was Operation Midnight Hammer, when we bombed Fort Dow, and Bibi wanted a full front war at that time, and Charlie convinced the president that that was not a good idea, and he stood up to the entire Zionist lobby who were in his ears. I think Bibi viewed him as problematic. They were very upset about Tucker's speech, and Charlie had said he was abandoning the, Israel cause. And so I think what you're seeing is that Trump has a boss. And so much of what we see in D.C. is just an illusion. I think we've always been aware that there is a deep state. And I would say that the proliferation of the deep state was certainly after JFK was assassinated in '63.
Yeah, when I think of the deep state, I think of Israel. And that's how I really was drawn to Trump, because of the deep state and the shadow government controlling our government. We want to put America first. And so
And y'all
far,
thought
people
he was
did
doing it.
anything but that.
I agree. It has been a massive letdown. I think if there's one thing that I'm happy about,
can't
is that
believe
we've
y'all-
certainly proved, the rhetoric was always MAGA is a cult, MAGA is a cult. Well, I think we've certainly proven that we are not. And when he started to go back on his promises, I mean, his consistent attacking of Thomas Massey. Can we get the energy that you have towards Thomas Massey? Towards
Sound
the
like he
investigation
played
into
everybody who
Charlie
believed
Kirk?
in him.
That'd be great. And it's not exactly what we were uniting behind. MAGA wasn't like, let's take down Thomas Massey. This is our number one problem.
Right.
And so it's almost like somebody has his phone and somebody is telling him what to say, when to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the deep state is just the unelected bureaucracy, the power holders, the power brokers that sustain regardless of electoral outcomes and presidential races and congressional races. A lot of it.
Gotta go.
Our cooking here at Esme is very...
I'm just going to make some comments about the Epstein investigation. What's really important, the big development today, is that it appears that the DOJ is withholding critical documents as it relates to a survivor who made allegations about President Trump when she was a minor. Some of this has been reported already, and yesterday I went to the DOJ. We've been investigating this for a few weeks. So this is the actual document. So this is a manifest document, and it's available to the public. And on this document, it shows a series of documents that should be in the DOJ's possession about, there were some conversations and information about this survivor, of which we know who the survivor is, of course, but they're redacted and we're not going to release that information. Those highlighted documents are missing from the actual search of the files. So while some of the documents in that list are there, they're clearly a series of documents have been removed. And we understand, and it's been confirmed, that those documents have been removed, likely pertain to some allegations that the survivor made about President Trump. And so what's important now is the DOJ explains to us
So stop all of that. I've been exonerated. No, you haven't.
What those
Quit lying.
documents say and why they're covering this up. So that right now is our big concern, and we're opening a parallel investigation for this right now.
Can I ask you, were those documents ever in the system and were they taken down, or is it your understanding that they were just never there?
So this document itself, from what I understand, Andrew, was put up, taken down, and this document itself is now back up. This manifest document. But the documents that are listed that should be included, which are referenced in other documents, are not in the files. And I confirmed this yesterday because we've been talking to some additional folks, and there's been some reporting about it. So I wanted to go in and just double check it myself.
So you went to the DOJ?
I went to the DOJ file search room yesterday to look for these documents that are in the manifest document.
And they wasn't there.
They're not there. These documents relate to a survivor that has made serious allegations about the president.
So you're saying they weren't even in the unredacted available files that only members of Congress can see?
Correct. What should be available are files, whether redacted or unredacted. They should be available to us. That's part not just of the Transparency Act, but the oversight subpoena that was put in place over the summer. We need to see those documents, and I think another important question is why are those documents not made available to Congress? And I think that's a question of the DOJ that needs to be answered.
What recourse can Congress take, if any, in light of this revelation?
Well, I think right now we're reviewing that. We're going to be communicating. We've been communicating with the DOJ. We need an explanation as to why these documents have not been released. They have said, they put out a statement today, I believe, to another news outlet saying, well, they took the documents down and they put them back up. That's correct, but they're talking about the manifest documents that they put up and removed. The documents that are listed, that are a list of the documents, are gone. Some of the documents are there. The ones that are highlighted that I just showed you, those are missing.
It's been almost 6 months, I think, since you guys have gotten anything from the DOJ on that subpoena. What conversations have you had with Chairman Comer about enforcing that or about actions that the committee can take?
We've had conversations, but I think they're refusing. I mean, they're slow walking all of it. I mean, we couldn't even get Republicans to show up at the Les Wexner subpoena deposition. So I think we're trying our very best to get them to act. But our investigation moves forward regardless of whether Republicans want to be engaged in it or not.
So are you in contact with the survivor then? Do you know who the survivor is?
I have seen the unredacted name. I know who the survivor is. That's all I'll say.
Can you specify whether the committee has talked to her?
I'm not going to specify that.
Is Chairman Comer aware of this? What has he said?
I believe that I believe that the majority is aware that there are documents not missing. As far as what the response is going to be, I think is we're going to wait to see. But we need to see these documents. And I mean, this is, in my opinion. I mean, look, we have to find out what's going on. But there's definitely, in my opinion, evidence of a cover-up happening. Why are these documents missing? These documents, I personally saw. I know who the survivor is. The name is redacted in the manifest document, and there are documents missing from the same survivor that appear to be interviews or conversations, again, appear to be with the FBI, that the FBI clearly investigated, and now those documents are gone.
Was your impression that the survivor was a minor at the time of this incident?
It is our impression from other documents that the survivor was a minor at the time. But again, that survivor's identity has not been released, and I want to make sure I'm also very clear that all of this right now, I'm saying this, this is all what it appears to be. And so I just think it's very clear. The evidence is pointing to these documents are missing. It's a survivor who has made serious
intentionally
allegations against the president, and that needs to be investigated. And at a minimum, why aren't those documents there? I think that's a question that the media needs to be also asking the DOJ.
Can I ask you, who at the DOJ are you talking to at this point?
We have a team at the DOJ that the committee speaks to on a regular basis, and so we're talking to those folks. But again, I'll be public. I mean, the Attorney General Pam Bondi right now should tell us and explain to the American people why these documents that we know exist, because we have the documents available to all of you, why those documents are not there.
Have you guys talked about any legal avenues you have under the Epstein Files Act? I mean, this is one of several instances that Democrats and Republicans,
some different organizations. In fact, I'm talking to some later today that are exploring the legal avenue. The reality is that it's only the majority in Congress that is able to take direct legal recourse. We don't have that ability as Democrats to do that. And so that is where I think we're running into some issues. But there are organizations out there that are trying to get information from the DOJ. But I think if they believe in transparency, they should release these documents. I mean, that's the most important thing. You can't have someone making a serious allegation against the president include some of those documents that you list and withhold the others. But right now, we just need an explanation why those documents are not available to us.
And what are you hoping to hear from President Clinton and Secretary Clinton this morning?
I hope to hear, particularly, we've said, particularly on President Clinton, we wanted to talk to President
Hey,
Clinton.
aloha, kitty.
And so I think that we have questions. I personally have questions, especially about.
I don't know. I'm not watching it. I'll be
ties to
tuning into the People's State of the Union.
So I think those are some questions that I have, and certainly.
I am not going to even watch. Everything he going to say is a lie. What we need to say is how many times is he going to blame his numbers and his shortcomings on Biden. Shit.
Broadly, I think the broader question at this moment is the immense failure that administrations, both Republican and Democrats and Republicans both, administrations of both, have failed survivors in not getting more information out to the public. And why is it that we continue to protect those powerful men, whether it was right now in the Donald Trump administration and the cover-up, or why, for example, and I've had questions for Merrick Garland, the former AG under President Biden. Why wasn't more information put out to the public? Why not focus on justice for the survivors?
Yeah, that's who's putting on the
How many of your members do you expect are going to be going up to New York this week?
State of the Union.
A good group of members of the both from the Republican Democratic side. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's who's putting it on. Trying to see everything I marked. before to get it out of the way.
No face to sell you, no party to recruit you into, no billionaire backers to protect. We follow patterns, paperwork footage, and the moments leaders cannot fake. And what surfaced today is exactly that kind of moment. A clip is going viral from this morning, showing Donald Trump near the end of a White House speech, clutching the podium like he needs it to stay upright. Then
he almost fell.
away and walking toward a locked door.
A clip is going viral from this morning of Donald Trump wandering away towards the end of his speech he gave at the White House. He clutches the podium for support and oddly walks back towards a locked door. Donald Trump is not well. All right, it has been a brutal morning for the Trump administration after a new CNN poll puts Donald Trump's approval rating at...
It almost took his breath away.
Is he going to speak? Oh.
He don't have nothing to say.
This is after rambling about election integrity.
While everyone sits there in awkward silence. It's a strange visual, and it lands harder, because it comes right after a major political setback that clearly rattled him. This morning was brutal for Trump's administration, because a new CNN poll put his approval rating at a lower point than it was after January 6th.
Election integrity, because he got poor polling today.
And Trump seems to be well underneath it at this point. Compare that to where he was in 2020, 2019, and 2018 in term one going into those state unions. Minus 10, way lower now. Minus 15, way lower now. Minus 15, way lower now. The bottom line is this: Donald Trump has never been weaker going into a state
I can't believe that he will let him shame himself on stage. He
He
don't think he's ashamed. He think everybody's still
That is not
fooled.
a normal dip. That is a collapse into historically toxic territory. And instead of responding with a
He
serious
think everybody is
Trump
still
came out
fooled
and delivered
with
a
his
bizarre
shenanigans.
speech that sounded like a man arguing with ghosts. He talked about the polls, insisted there is silent support, implied everything is rigged, and then slid into his favorite coping mechanism, recycling the election fraud lie from 5 years ago. He is a year into power, and he is still performing the same grievance routine, as if he is campaigning
That's all he
against
got.
reality itself.
That's
The
all they
numbers
told him he
explain why
needed to
he was
do.
spiraling. According to the rundown in the original content,
That's
Trump's
all
approval
Israel
over the
told
past
him he
year
needed to
dropped
do.
19% among Latino voters. It dropped 18% among Americans younger than 45, which is massive. It dropped 15% with independents, down to 26%, the lowest in either of his terms. And it dropped 14% among men. That is not one demographic drifting. That is multiple pillars cracking at once. When you see a drop among
That mean you
independents
failed.
that deep, it means even people who are not emotionally tied to either party are looking at the administration and deciding it is not working.
It's a no.
When you see a steep drop among younger voters, it means the future is
That
turning
means
its
it's
back.
a no.
And when you see a sharp drop among Latinos, it means Trump's policies are not just unpopular. They are being experienced as hostile. Why is it happening? The explanation is not complicated. Among Latino voters, it could be the repeated targeted ICE raids, described as reckless, with untrained agents abuse that does not discriminate cleanly between citizens and non-citizens, and a climate of fear that spreads beyond the individuals being targeted. When people watch enforcement turn into spectacle and cruelty, they do not feel safer. They feel hunted, and that is politically radioactive. Among Americans younger than 45, it could be the economy. Trump claims he is delivering prosperity, but the reality described is unemployment rising among young people, rising among Black Americans, rising broadly since he took office a year ago. And that matters because Trump's brand is built on the promise of strength and results. If jobs feel harder to get, if costs stay high, if the future feels
You should
tighter,
have released
then the
all the
strongest
Epstein
part of
files
his
and
image
dealt with your dirt.
collapses. The original content also points to
'Cause we
the
ain't going nowhere.
contradiction in the mass deportation narrative. They claimed mass deportations would lead to more jobs for Americans. Now they are pushing mass deportations, and people are losing jobs and struggling to find more. Make that make sense? Because it does not. It reveals a worldview that was always based on blame, not economics. There is also a deeper point in the original that Trump never wants to admit. Most Americans are not extremists on immigration. Most people are okay with legal immigration. Many people are okay with deporting people who are here illegally.
Well, it looked like
if someone is here illegally,
they doing more. The White House and them people, a part of this cult, is doing the most crime.
Safety and starts being about cruelty. The original describes deporting grandmas and deporting people who show up to court for due process, turning the legal system into a trap. When you punish people for showing up, you do not create order, you create fear. And fear eventually turns into backlash. Then you add the other pressures that have been stacking. The Epstein file, cover-up accusations, the endless scandals, the broken promises that Trump used to sell his return to power. He promised to lower inflation on day one. He promised to end the Ukraine war on day one. He later claimed he ended 8 wars, but the original content calls that what it is, self-flattering nonsense, credit-grabbing off phone calls after violence already started. Meanwhile, the real ongoing humanitarian disasters keep moving, like Sudan's civil war and starvation, like Israel bombing Gaza, like civilians dying while Trump postures and allies with other strong men. The original makes the point bluntly. Trump has not done anything meaningful about the wars that actually matter, and instead he has helped Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu while civilians get hit. Whether you agree with every framing or not, the political reality is that Trump's claims of instant peace look ridiculous against the actual state of the world. So Trump takes a poll hit this severe, and what does he do? He shows up at the White House and starts ranting about election fraud at an event that, according to the comments referenced in the original, was supposed to honor angel families, families of people who have been murdered. That
Oh, he ain't gonna talk about that.
Because it shows how consumed he is by himself. He could not keep focus on the families. He could not keep focus.
No, because he probably was a part of unaliving them.
Platform to vent about his own obsession with 2020 because the poll numbers threatened him today. He said the election was rigged by millions and millions of votes. He is still rehashing something that is not true from 5 years ago.
You're a failure.
For a year.
People need to tell him the truth. You're a failure.
There was no fraud.
I don't know if I've ever met a man who is more interested in this country and running his country and getting it back in shape. And I'm so grateful for what he does every single day.
Someone in the comments asks, what is this event supposed to be? And they reply, it's supposed to honor angel families. So it's an event to honor the families of people who have been murdered.
He can't.
Donald Trump is quite literally ranting about election fraud. And
Republican judges said there was no fraud, and he is still rambling. That is not strategy. That is compulsion. It is vindictive, repetitive, and detached from the job he is supposed to be doing now. He continued talking about a guy who never left his basement, about crooked people, about COVID being a shield, and again insisting it was rigged by millions.
A guy that never left
and
his
his
basement
partner
was all run by
did COVID.
COVID was a little bit of a shield. We had a lot of things going on, but it was rigged by millions of us.
Then he said something even more revealing. He told the room that if the election was not rigged, every single person in that room would not be there. They would be home with their family.
We did great in that election. If that election wasn't rigged, every single one of the people in this room right now would not be here. You'd be home with your son, daughter, family.
That is how he keeps people loyal, by telling them their entire status depends on his grievance. He frames their careers as proof of his victimhood. He turns their presence into a monument to his lie. Then he shifted to another familiar delusion.
This is some really deranged shit. He then goes on to talk about the polls and says that he probably got more votes.
Probably 85 million votes. They say 78 million, 79 million. They cheated in this election, too. It was just too big to rig. Too big to rig. But they cheated like hell. They can't win on policy.
Everything he says is really him.
Said he won probably 85 million votes, even though he acknowledges people say 78 or 79 million, and he insisted they cheated again. But it was too big to rig, yet they cheated like hell. That kind of line is a perfect example of Trump logic. It contradicts itself in a single breath, but it does not matter, because the goal is not consistency. The goal is to keep the emotional temperature high enough that nobody asks for evidence. This is the moment where the polling context returns. The original content points out a key line. Only 32% of voters think Trump has had the right priorities, and 68% think he has not paid enough attention to the country's most important problems. That is devastating. It means people see him as distracted. And then the second metric, only 38% think his policies move the country in the right direction. 61% say no. And then the job approval itself. 36% approve, 63% disapprove. These are numbers that make a president lash out because they suggest his base is shrinking and his floor is falling. A commentator described it as weak, 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 and cited a net approval around negative 27.
Okay, we're at this point. Look at that. Negative 27 points. My goodness gracious, the snow is up to the knees.
They painted it as very bad, and then they noted something visual. Trump's hand looked nasty, like it was in pain, and you could see it in the videos along with bad makeup. Then Trump drifted into something truly bizarre. He said, "I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I?" And then he said he will not forget them.
I don't know how long I'll be around.
What?
A lot of people gunning for me, don't I, huh?
7 points. My goodness gracious,
What?
the snow is up to the knees.
They painted it as very bad, and then they noted something
Is that
visual.
defeat?
Trump's hand
Is
looked
that
nasty,
I know I'm
like
finna
it
go?
was in pain, and you could see it in the videos along with bad makeup. Then Trump drifted into something truly bizarre. He said, "I don't know how long I'll be around.
I don't know how
Got
long
a lot
I'll
of
be
people gunning
around.
for me, don't I?" And then he said he will not forget them.
I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I, huh?
What?
But I will not forget them. I'm never going to forget.
Listen to that carefully. That is not a president talking about the country. That is a man talking like he is starring in his own drama. It is paranoia coded as toughness.
Wow.
It is grievance coded as destiny.
I'm taking to my
content
grave.
answers that moment with another reminder. What we are not going to forget is the Epstein files.
Is he saying that he gonna take it to his grave? Is that what he's saying on the call? I ain't gonna never forget.
And cited a net approval around negative 27.
Okay, we're at this point. Look at that. Negative 27 points. My goodness gracious, the snow is up to the knees.
They painted it as very bad, and then they noted something visual. Trump's hand looked nasty, like it was in pain, and you could see it in the videos along with bad makeup. Then Trump drifted into something truly bizarre. He said, "I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I?" And then he said he will not forget them.
I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I, huh?
What?
But I will not forget them. I'm never going to forget.
Listen to that.
And his voice sound
not a president
shaky,
talking
don't
about
it?
the country.
This is crazy.
Along with bad makeup. Then Trump drifted into something truly bizarre. He said, "I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I?" And then he said he will not forget them.
I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I, huh?
What?
But I will not forget them. I'm never going to forget.
Listen to that carefully. That is not a president
Oh,
talking
wow.
about the country. That is a man talking like he is starring in his own drama. It is paranoia coded as toughness. It is grievance coded as destiny. And the original content answers that moment with another reminder. What we are not going to forget is the Epstein files, the inflation promise, the war
Absolutely
promise,
not.
and the long list of lies and harms. It calls out Trump's pattern of claiming wins he did not deliver while ignoring real crises. It also hits Trump on economics, saying he claims he brought in $18 trillion for large corporations while
We are not forgetting
with another
anything.
reminder. What we are not going to forget Is the Epstein files, the inflation promise, the war promise, and the long list of coded.
Oh, get off of it, girl.
As destiny, and the original content answers that moment with another reminder. What we are not going to forget is the Epstein files, the inflation promise, the war promise, and the long list of lies and harms. It calls out Trump's pattern of claiming wins he did not deliver, while ignoring real crises. It also hits Trump on economics, saying he claims he brought in $18 trillion for large corporations while destroying small businesses, and then calls that figure a lie, saying the real.
He called it a lie, but saying the real. Absolutely. He just switches it around. That is absolutely his MO. No, that's not what I want to go out on. Yeah, I'm finna get ready to go. I had some good stuff behind the scenes, but I had some. How does she screw up this?
So Michael Popok with the Legal
Let's
AF
go,
Hot Take.
Michael.
We finally have an ability for the special counsel to take an.
It started as a routine
Oh, no, no,
Monday
no.
afternoon, a snowball fight escalating to a safety
Oh,
concern.
no, no, no.
So Michael Popok with the Legal AF Hot Take. We finally have an ability for the special counsel to
Let's
take an
go.
appeal to the 11th Circuit to capture all of the wrongful conduct and misapplication of the law and reversible error by Judge Aileen Cannon in the Mar-a-Lago case. You heard it right, folks. We finally have a decision by the judge, not a paperless order, not an extension of time, not a kicking the can down the road, an actual order. It's 14 pages. It's been docketed as document number 608, and it may go down in the annals of history as the thing that got Aileen Cannon reassigned from the case to allow the Mar-a-Lago prosecution to continue. What am I talking about?
Let's go.
We've got an order, finally, on a series of motions to dismiss and motions to strike brought by Donald Trump, Walt Nauta, and Carlos de Oliveira. Now, the headline that you probably read is, the judge denied Donald Trump's motion as it related to an attempt to
That's what it
dismiss the
said.
indictment on the grounds that were stated. To
But
summarize it, he argued in his filings, Donald Trump's filings, that the indictment was so prolix, so complicated, so including of irrelevant information that when you boil it down to the essential elements, that the special counsel missed the boat and didn't properly charge each aspect of the crime. They got the crime wrong, in other words, that the special counsel didn't properly put in the language required to support the indictment. And they go through each of the counts like that. Except the judge, surprisingly, denies the motion and says most of the arguments that Donald Trump is raising are better raised at trial in front of a jury. It's not grounds to dismiss the indictment. And I was just about to get out of the room and leave and go, all right, well, still don't have an order that needs to be dismissed until I read the back half of the order, in which the judge takes on one argument of Donald Trump, but that's all you need to get to the appellate level. One wrong decision by the judge, and we now have that wrong decision. It has to do with the motion to strike a certain paragraph of the indictment, paragraph 36. I don't expect you to remember what paragraph 36 of the indictment said, so I'm going to read it to you. And then I'm going to explain why she got it wrong under Rules of Evidence 404B.
Let's go.
The allegation, and I'll fill in the blank as to who they're referring to, because we now know we can fill in those blanks, that Trump showed the PAC representative, that was Susie Wiles, who's still his political action committee representative, that does all of his bidding, who's a secret, shadowy figure behind Donald Trump, that Trump showed Susie Wiles a classified map of Country B, that was Afghanistan, and told Susie Wiles that he should not be showing the map to Susie Wiles and not to get too close, indicating he knew this was classified information. Susie Wiles did not have a security
know her.
clearance or any need to know classified information about the military operation. Okay, when we first saw that, we said, well, that goes to his intent. We always wondered why he wanted to hold on to these documents. Was it transactional? Did he want to sell them? Did he want to use them, Donald Trump, for extortion? Did he want to, extort Macron or the prior French prime minister or president because he was having an affair? Was he going to use it in a transactional way to try to get back into office, to go after his political enemies, which he constantly says he's going to go after? Why did he keep the documents? It can't just be sloppy.
So let me give you three numbers: 28, 99, and 150.
I mean, that's what Donald Trump's lawyers say. Donald Trump's lawyers say their primary defense is that he didn't pack his boxes leaving the White House. They're all commingled with, like,
shouldn't have been there,
clothes and personal items and newspaper clippings and classified top secret documents, and he can't be held responsible for it, which might actually be a decent argument if there wasn't substantial evidence, including video proof and insider testimony against Donald Trump, that he got his hands up to his elbows, knee deep,
and Ivanka told on him,
boxes, and reviewed each of the boxes before the lawyers for the Department of Justice met with his lawyers, Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb. If he hadn't done that, it was just like, well, there's some old boxes in the garage. Why don't you go take a look? I don't really know what's there. I mean, that, by the way, that is a legitimate defense for Joe Biden. He did not pack up his boxes leaving the Penn Biden Center. He did not pack up his boxes and store them in the garage. He did not buy his filing cabinets. But let's leave that for another day. That is Donald Trump's sort of argument. Who knew what was in there? There's a bunch of boxes they sent. I never really got a chance to take a look at
Shouldn't have brought 'em
That's
home.
a lie, because in the indictment, there's plenty of evidence that he did take a look at it. So that's sort of their argument. And so they've argued here in the paragraph 36 motion to strike, Donald Trump's lawyers argued that that particular event, Donald Trump showing the Afghanistan map, top secret classified, to Susie Wiles, who did not have clearance, right? And acknowledging that she shouldn't get too close because he should not be showing it to her, went not to a charged crime of the indictment, but to his mental state, to his mens rea, to his intent. Now, there is a general proposition under the evidence code and under Rule 404B of the evidence code that you can't use bad other conduct to prove the indicted conduct that you're putting before the jury, unless there's an exception, which of course the judge ignored in her order giving rise to the appeal. There's an exception if you're trying to show motive and intent. We went through these issues up in New York with the Stormy Daniels New York criminal prosecution. There was plenty of evidence that wasn't an actual charged crime, one of the 34 felony counts, but went to show intent or motive. And that's why it was let in under that version, that second half of Rule 404B. It's as if Judge Cannon never read the second half of 404B.
She did.
In fact, in her half a paragraph analysis of this particular section, while she takes the prosecutors to task, and I'm going to read from it in a minute, tisk, you used a speaking indictment. You should have used a boilerplate form that you got downloaded from the internet or from AI. Why are you using what's called a speaking indictment or a portable closing argument? You put so much information in there that was unnecessary to the prosecution and to the indictment. Why? Why? The same reason, I'll answer your question, Judge Cannon, the same reason that you thought at the beginning of the case when you were trying to suppress the search warrant, and you were trying to set up all of these hurdles to the prosecution to even bring the indictment, you said, well, it's a special case. We have a former president. Former president needs extra protection under our criminal justice system. The reason for the speaking indictment, which is shorthand for a very long, detailed narrative that's contained within the indictment. That's not necessary legally. All you have to do is have a short, concise statement. I agree with that part of Judge Cannon's decision. But the reason is this is a public indictment of a former president, and the people have to understand the facts that have been alleged coming out of the grand jury in the indictment. Right? The prosecutors, the special counsel's office realized that they were going into uncharted water, that they were going after a former president, and that in order to make their case to the American people, that this was a legitimate prosecution, they needed to put in all the detail of what they had found. They didn't have to do that, I agree. But once they did, it's obvious why they did it, and the judge should have recognized that. Well, I understand that they didn't download a form from the internet. Right. Given that this is a very unique set of facts, they felt they needed to make an argument to the American people as to why they indicted a guy who used to be president. How hard is that to see? Suddenly the judge has amnesia. She thought it was unique that a former president was being prosecuted and that she needed to put up safeguards and guardrails. Why doesn't she then recognize that because he is a former president, there was the need for the speaking indictment? But she takes them to task. What she says on page 13 of 14 is that having reviewed these arguments in their totality on page 13 and carefully considered the superseding indictment as a whole, the court agrees with Trump that much of the language in the superseding indictment is legally unnecessary to serve the function of an indictment as explained in the foregoing case law. The court also notes, this is her lecturing the special counsel again, the risks that can flow from a prosecutor.
Oh, he shouldn't have done it.
In a charging document, an extensive narrative account of his or her view of the facts, especially in cases of significant public interest. That's the opposite. She has turned that concern upside down. Because there is significant public interest, she thought that the prosecutor would be able to get away with a 5-page.
So he can appeal it?
You know what? How about that? How about that, Judge Cannon? How about they download a form from the internet and then just in every blank they just write in Donald J. Trump? How about that? Would that satisfy you? But because of the great public interest, it was required, I would submit, I would posit, that they use a detailed indictment, which she so backhandedly refers to as, and dismissively refers to as, a speaking indictment. That it was required here. That is my argument. The court also notes the risk, she continues, that can flow from the prosecutor's decision. Okay. Notwithstanding these concerns, given the rigorous standard for applying this motion to strike rule, the court exercises its discretion with one exception below, not to order the striking of allegations requested by defendants, at least not at this stage. But she always leaves herself a back door. It's amazing. But she continues on the bottom of page 13. The court reaches a different conclusion as to that paragraph 36 and on Susie Wiles, the Afghanistan map, and Donald Trump acknowledging that it was classified and top secret and he shouldn't be showing it to her. There, she looks at Rule 404B, but she ignores the second half of Rule 404B about motive and intent. She says that the special counsel indicates that it was included, that paragraph 36, for 404B purposes. The judge says this is not appropriate. The federal rules of criminal procedure contemplate a specific procedure.
Congratulations, Neil. I'm so excited for you. Just talk about your emotions and how you're feeling when you heard about the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, not really for me.
This is Michael Popok with the Legal AF Hot Take. We needed to put up safeguards and guardrails. Why doesn't she then recognize that because he is a former president, there was the need for the speaking indictment? But she takes them to task. What she says on page 13 of 14 is that she always leaves herself a back door. It's amazing. But she continues at the bottom of page 13. The court reaches a different conclusion as to that paragraph 36 and on Susie Wiles, the Afghanistan map, and Donald Trump acknowledging that it was classified and top secret and he shouldn't be showing it to her. There, she looks at Rule 404B, but she ignores the second half of Rule 404B about motive and intent. She says that the special counsel indicates that it was included, that paragraph 36, for 404B purposes. The judge says this is not appropriate. The federal rules of criminal procedure contemplate a specific procedure governing attempts to introduce evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or acts. Federal Rule Criminal Procedure is also Evidence Code 404B. Pretrial notice must be given with supporting reasons justifying a permissible non-propensity use of the allegations. In other words, she's focused on the first half of the rule. You can't use unindicted conduct to prove
all them files.
That you did the indicted conduct. And we all agree with that.
But you can use it in the second half of 404B, which he completely ignores, for motive and intent, to show that Donald Trump transactionally was not only harboring and hoarding all of the top secret documents that belong to the American people, but then he was using them, showing that he knew they were classified. This defeats the argument that, oh, I thought I declassified everything. I thought I mentally declassified that. I thought I did a blanket declassification, which I'm allowed to do somewhere mentally in my mind. Well, if you thought that, then why are you telling Susie Wiles that I can't show you this because it's classified? That's what it goes to. The judge continues in her wrong-headed approach.
So he
he
knew.
14, and even then, the permissibility of 404B evidence is not always self-evident, except until trial, when the contours of defenses are crystallized and the court can assess the potential probative value and/or prejudicial impact of the evidence in light of the full evidentiary picture. What she's saying is, I'm going to strike it from the pleading. I'm going to strike it from the pleading, and I'm going to reserve judgment as to whether I'm going to allow that to come in at trial after I hear more evidence or I hear more argument. So against this backdrop and without any authority provided by the special counsel authorizing the inclusion of 404B allegations in the indictment, she's going to strike it in the normal course. Then she drops a footnote. Orders granting motions to strike surplusage, which is what she says, extra stuff that shouldn't be in there, from indictments do not trigger any additional directive, nor do defendants in this case request any additional action short of dismissal. Courts have discretion to permit or not permit juries to take a copy of the indictment into the jury room. Not all juries get the indictment, and she's concerned that if she allows the indictment to go into the jury, she doesn't like that particular paragraph because it won't be balanced. I think he's got a 404B Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure appeal now to the appellate court. I think they need to give her proper direction about the 404B and motive and intent. And they might as well draw that red line right now, that line in the sand, right now with Judge Cannon. They've been looking for a way to get into court, and this, I believe, is the way. So I wanted to kind of unpack that 14 pages my way, bring it to you here, and sort of show you where we're at. Now, look, there's other motions that have been filed. Donald Trump just filed a motion to suppress other evidence because he said there was spoliation. I'll do a special hot take on that one next. That has to do with, well, they didn't preserve the contents of the boxes, the FBI, when they did the execution of the search warrant, and things were spilling out, and they didn't keep the sanctity and the continuity of the boxes. We'll deal with that another time. But right now, I believe that there is a reversible error moment.
Okay, I gotta go, y'all. I gotta get ready for. I think it's scheduled for 7. I probably scheduled for about 7:15. Okay, gotta go.